Good afternoon, everyone. This is my English class number 10, and today, as I said, let us just discuss about the question and answer that we have with the chapter 2, Deer. So, I'm just going to discuss the question and answers of the chapter of the short story that we did. So, here today, I'm just going to discuss only the comprehension 1, 2 and 3, and the textbook also follows with certain words that are related to grammar that will also be discussed. Coming back to providing you the notes, I have already told you that the question numbers of all the chapters from the units in the springs, that is your poems or your short stories or whatever, the comprehension 2 and 3, I will give it to you the hard copies provided from the college, and only for the comprehension 1 maybe you can make a note of those answers in the textbook itself, or maybe you have your own books to refer or something, or you should be thorough with the text, isn't it? Nothing will be asked to you out of the text. Obviously, whatever the question that would be asked will be limited to the textbook only. It depends on how you read it and comprehend it. Okay, so we have discussed and completed a discussion on a short story, Two Deer, which was actually written and translated to English. It was actually a French short story which was actually translated to English by name Aflot. The name of the translated version has been given at the end of the short story. You can read it in the text only, and this is something that we have discussed about the title so called as a Two Deer. So by now you are in a position to understand what was Two Deer for the Kingdom of Monaco, or for the Prince of the Monaco, and how what was the actual scenario of the story, and how exactly he started, that is the criminal or the murderer, how he started becoming too dear for the administration of this small kingdom that is located on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, called as the Kingdom of Monaco, which is also called as the Toy Kingdom, right? So let me straight away come on to the first question that we have, and the very first question is again on the name itself. So comprehension 1, question number 1 is, why was Monaco called a toy kingdom? So you got to give the reason here, right? So why was it called as a toy kingdom? Because of its size. Okay, so it was a very small kingdom, and that's the reason that it was also called as a very small kingdom, because of the population, the diameter of the kingdom or whatsoever. That's the reason that it was also called as a toy kingdom. Then the next question is, name the commodities that were taxed in the Kingdom of Monaco. When you go back to this question, you got to answer it in a phrase, right? So the commodities that were taxed in Monaco were, yes, what is it? So they were putting, or they were levying the taxes on tobacco, right, spirits, and what else? So they were putting the taxes on the tobacco, wine and spirits, also poll tax. So these were the things that were actually taxed, right? So maybe a question on first 1 mark about name the commodities that were taxed in Monaco. Then what was the source of king's special revenue? Who were its beneficiaries? Okay, so when you name or when you answer the second question, you got to just mention only those 3 commodities. Okay, it could be wine, it could be spirits, and then the tobacco, and also included with poll tax. Okay, wine and spirits is a one word, then you have tobacco, then you have a poll tax. But now the question number 3 is asking you, for you people to understand and give the answer for, what is that? Gaming house, isn't it? So what was the source of the king's special revenue? The king's special revenue used to come from roulette. So be very careful about the spelling of the word which is given there in the text, and you will have to answer. So roulette was the source of king's additional or the special revenue. Who were its beneficiaries? There were two beneficiaries, isn't it? A person, one who runs Rowlett, at the same time the kinglet. Both of them were the beneficiaries of the income that was coming from this. Then, why did the Germans stop gaming houses in their country, and how did it benefit Monaco? So here you got to understand what the question is all about, and then you will have to answer. And when you answer this question, you know that, or you should consider in your mind that the Prince of the Kingdom of Monaco was the only person who was having almost a kind of a monopoly over the Rowlett games. But all the neighboring countries have already stopped because of the ill effects of the game, isn't it? So ultimately, a person, one who loses the money, he has to look himself for the death at the end because of all the things that he either loses or wins, isn't it? But Kingdom of Monaco, or the Prince of the Monaco, was having a monopoly because he did not abolish, because it was a special revenue source for the kingdom to run. Okay, understand that. What was the punishment given to the murderer? First instance, okay, you got to answer here. What was the sentence, or what was the punishment that was given to the murderer when they hear it for the first time? The first thing that you will have to understand here is that the commitment of a murder, that is, a committing of a murder, was of its first kind in the kingdom, isn't it? It was the very first murder that had happened in the kingdom. So obviously, as the law and order says, he was given death sentence. Death sentence can also mean to cut his head off, to execute him, isn't it? So death sentence, one word is enough as your answer for that. Then the death sentence was converted into life imprisonment because, what was the reason that they later on changed the death sentence into the life imprisonment? Monaco had abolished death penalty. Carrying out death sentence was expensive. Monaco wanted to show mercy on the criminal. So you know the option, isn't it? So option B, because it was becoming too dear for them. It was becoming too dear for them. So carrying out the death sentence was very expensive. How much did the king spend annually on the criminal? So you got to come to the later part of the story to understand or answer this question. What is that he was spending on the murderer to keep him? Yes, it is 600 francs per year. So that's the thing that he was actually spending. Then, on what condition did the criminal agree to go away from the prison? How was his demand fulfilled? Okay, there was only one condition, that the murderer agreed to leave the premises of the kingdom of Monaco, isn't it? What is it? He has to get the pension every year, isn't it? He used to come, collect it, then go back. That's the only condition that he agreed upon. So he was healthy, he was still fit and fine, he was very young enough, but still this became a source of income for him, isn't it? You know that story there. So on paying the pension on time to time, this was the condition that he agreed upon. And then how was his demand fulfilled? Yes, his demand was fulfilled, that they agreed to pay him whatever that they settled this this murderer for. So these are 8 questions that have been asked in comprehension 1, part 1. Okay, but you might be getting questions other than these 8 questions also. Okay, that's the reason that you might, or you should be very thorough with the text in identifying one word answers. Okay, then let me come on to this comprehension 2, and here you are going to answer these questions for short answer questions, which will be asked for 4 marks in your annual examination. So you have a word limit of 80 to 100 words here, but see to it that whichever the answer that you write it clearly and to the point. Let us see what is the first question is about. Though gambling is a dirty business, why does the king of Monaco resort to it? Resort? It is not resort, okay? Resorts to it. Though it was considered to be a very dirty business, or the dirty game, but still the kingdom of Monaco always supported it, resort to it. He always supported it. He did not abolish. I hope you know the answer for that, right? So just go on to the point to the question what is asked, and then you will have to write your own answers for that. Okay, so have it in your mind, like, you know, what exactly could be the answer to this particular question, and as I said, notes will be given to you. All right, then, why did the king of Monaco keep changing his mind in dealing with the criminal? So here in this question you will have to talk about how the prince of the kingdom of Monaco kept on changing his decisions in dealing with the criminal. The first thing that you will have to start here is because of that murder in the kingdom, as their law and order says, as a decision of all the people who belong to the law in his own kinglet, it was decided that he has to be given the death sentence. But in the course of the story, we have seen, like, you know, the king or the prince of the kingdom of Monaco kept on changing his decisions. And why? Because he was becoming too dear for them, right? Then, why was the criminal reluctant to go out of the prison? Okay, you can remember about the guard who was set on to supervise or to look after this fellow in the whatever the prison that they had, right? But why was he reluctant, unwilling? Okay, why was he not willing to go out of the prison? So you can just come on to the last part of the lesson or the short story and say, like, you know, he has already been regarded as a murderer. He cannot go back to his own country, right? So these are some of the reasons that he says that he has lost his job and no one will give him job, isn't it? So these are the things that should be there in your mind while answering this question, and that is the reason that the murderer was unwilling. Reluctant, the synonym for the word reluctant is nothing but why wasn't he willing to go out of the prison? Then, how did the criminal lead his life after his release? So you know that he agreed upon one term or the condition that annually he has to be paid whatever the amount that was being spent on him, and then you know that he went next to the palace next to the kingdom of Monaco or something. He bought a piece of land, right? So those things has to be considered while answering the question on the fourth one. Once again, students, I tell you that these are only the 4 questions that have been asked at the end of the text, but you should be in a position to answer the questions from whichever the part of the text. So that's why keep everything in your mind as if that you have understood the whole part of the story with all the circumstances that leads to the story at the end. Right now, let me come on to the comprehension 3. The moment I say comprehension 3, it is nothing but long answer question, and here your word limit will increase from 100 to 200 words so as your marks. So you will be asked this question with a choice, as I have already told you. How do you attempt these questions? You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor. Look at this statement very carefully. You can't earn stone palaces. You can't earn strong, strengthy palaces by just honest labor. Justify with reference to the story. How will you justify this statement? You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor. So what is that coming in your mind in order to justify your answer? Yes? Yes, it is about the rowlet you will have to mention here. Okay, so how did the prince or the prince of the kingdom of Monaco was running? How was he having a monopoly over this game? Though it was considered to be a very dirty business, but still he could not, or he did not want to abolish it, only for the fact that he is building his own stone palace by not just working as a honest labor. So you can mention here about the game of roulette. How was it being played there? How did he have this monopoly over it, and why was he depending on it can also be mentioned. So that is the reason that You can't earn stone palaces not just by the honest labor. You should also be like, have to have his control or monopoly the way the kingdom of Monaco or the king of the kingdom of Monaco was having it. So you can just remember about the episode of the Rowlet and you will have to answer this question, right? Then, though the trial and imprisonment of the criminal is depicted in a comic mode in this story, it does give rise to serious questions. What are they? French government asking 60,000 francs, Italian government asking 12,000 francs, and later on it was negotiated and finally it came to 600 francs a year. Maybe you have a lot of humor in it, but it definitely tells us about the serious questions. How can a country keep on changing the law and order according to their own will or something? So it will definitely give rise to those questions as well, isn't it? So you can just think of those terms and probably you can have it in your mind and you can answer the question if it all been asked in the examination. Then, were there other ways of dealing with the criminal? Discuss in the light of the story. So this is just a kind of a choice question which has been asked to you, like, if you were in the position, like, how would have you dealt with this criminal? So you can just discuss this in terms of the light. So we are not just going to write this answer or something. We will just have to have the thing in our mind, like, if you were in the position of the prince of the kingdom of Monaco, how would have you dealt with this criminal? You just got to discuss this in the light of the story, that is 2 dear. Okay, now today let's do something on the vocabulary. Okay, the small concept of vocabulary given at the end of this particular text is on the vocabulary. So my dear students, when it comes to vocabulary, okay, there are 3 different types of the words that a word evolves, isn't it? What is the origin of the word can be understood with the word by identifying its parts of speech, number 1, and then how can you change the words in accordance to the context that is been given, right? So that is why the title is given here as 2. So 2 and 2. What is the pronunciation here, and what about the spelling, and what about the meaning of the words here? So this is nothing but what? It's a homophone, isn't it? Why? A word which is pronounced in the same way, having 2 different spellings and having 2 different meanings. And such words in English are called as homophones. Getting? Homophones. On the other hand, you have another word, that is dear. My dear brother, the criminal was becoming very dear, isn't it? You have to think in that way. So we straight away come on to this particular thing here, that is the concept of homophone and homonyms here. So dear and dear, a word which is having a same spelling, same pronunciation, but used in 2 different contexts, that is having different meanings. Okay, having different meanings is called as homonym. So this is what exactly you are going to study in this vocabulary section of this lesson here. Okay, so in this short story, you got to identify the words which can be termed as homophones or homonyms. Now this is, as I was telling you, the first way of doing a vocabulary exercise on a specific word that is given. Okay, in the similar way, you might have also heard of what are antonyms and synonyms in English, right? Antonyms and synonyms. In the similar way, you also have a third set of the word which can be differentiated by adding or by deleting whatever the existing word is, and that is nothing but the suffixes or the prefixes. isn't it? So this is actually the three ways of how you can actually break a word into three different types. So what we have learned today, or what we have discussed today, is nothing but you have a set of words which are called as homophones, which are also called as homonyms. They are also called as homographs. You will come to know it in the later section when we do it in the workbook, right? So this is the first way of identifying the word, whether it is an homophone or it is a homonym. The second way of the word is nothing but words which are antonyms and synonyms, and then you have the words which can be prefixed and suffixed according to the context that is given. So have it in your mind about the three different types of the words in which the vocabulary of a word could be understood. Getting? So here we are doing today on the homonyms and the homophones. You all know it. It is not that I am repeating it once again or again and again or something, but you got to understand what exactly does it mean, and you got to be in a position to identify which word suits better, because tomorrow when you write the board examination, you would definitely have a question on either identifying an antonym or a synonym, or a homonym or a homophone, or maybe a prefix or a suffix. So this is how we start learning the vocabulary exercise. Getting? So we're doing something on homophone and homonyms here. So I've given you two examples here. Okay, so this is just to understand what the concept is all about. When you actually look into the text, you will come to know about the different ways of the words that have been used. Okay, now if I have to give you one more example here for deer, okay, or a homonym, draw. I think this example is given in the textbook only. Let me read that. Okay. Now listen. When a word is spelt and pronounced the same but has a different meaning is called as a homonym. When a word is spelt, pronounced with the same but has a different meaning is called as a homonym. Example: watch the difference in meaning becomes clearly only when you understand in the context when the word is used. For example, I know drawing. I went to draw money. I went to an ATM to draw money. Getting? I draw very nice, or I can draw it nicely, you can say that. At the same time, I had been to an ATM to draw money. Withdraw is also a word that we use. At the same time, we also say draw. Okay, in the similar way, deer. Look at the example of this man. Deer and two deer. So how exactly the title or the meaning itself changes. So that is why, if at all you need to understand the homonym in a better way, it is always the fact that you will have to understand looking into the context of it. Getting? Okay, so let me write one more example here, like, you know, do you think these two words are homonyms? Yes, bear. Okay, so how would you categorize, or how would you give, or how would you use it into different contexts? First of all, do you tell me, like, you know, do you agree that it's a homonym? Isn't it? You can look at the spelling, you can look at the pronunciation, but how can you use it in two different contexts? First one could be a name of an animal. Look at that bear, polar bear, so to say, right? At the same time, I can't bear the expenses. You might have come across a situation where people tell you, like, you know, we can't bear it. We can't bear the expenses. So there, bear is nothing but a verb. Here, a bear is nothing but a noun. So hope you can understand that, right? So in this way, there are certain words, there are so many words that you come across which can be categorized as a homophone or as a homonym. Look at these examples that have been given here. The king of Monaco found it too dear to maintain the prisoner. Found it too dear. Exactly the title. But on the other hand, when the king Midas touched his dear daughter, she changed into a statue of gold. So this is a mythological story that you all are aware of here, but look at the word deer used in two different contexts. Okay, this prisoner was becoming too dear for the kingdom, or when the king touched his dear daughter, near daughter, favorite, lovely, whatever you can just think of synonyms. Okay, so she touched into a gold. In the first sentence, the word dear means expensive, correct, and in the second sentence the dear means person, one who is lovable, dearest, right? So a person, one who is beloved, person, one who is valuable. Look at the context, how the words can be used into different contexts here. Okay, now look at the following sets of the sentences. The possible meanings of the homonyms are used in the brackets. Match them with the words that are given there. Okay, now first one, the valedictory address of the chief guest impressed everyone. The valedictory address. Okay, the second sentence is she made a mistake in writing the address. So please identify what is the homonym here. The word address is the homonym. The same spelling is used, but it has been used in two different contexts. The one is that the valedictory address was very impressive. Getting? The second one is that she made a mistake in writing the address. So the valedictory address is nothing but speech. Okay, welcome address, valedictory address, heard of it, right? You are given a responsibility of welcoming, giving the welcome address. Normally we use this word in this way, isn't it? So she made a mistake while writing her address on the envelope or whatsoever. So one is location, that is where do you live in that address. The other one is the speech. Getting? In the similar way, you have the poor man's mind was full of worry. Do you mind passing the jam? So identify the homonym there. The poor man's mind was full of worries. His mind was full of worries. Do you mind giving me the pen? Do you mind passing the jam? What exactly does it mean? So mind, when you say it is the state of your physical mind. At the same time, the mind, don't get annoyed. You say that, right? Do you mind passing me the book? So don't take it into thoughts, or don't mistake me, something like that, in that way. So other mind is full of thoughts. Then the soldier gave a complete account of the prisoner's escape. The official checked the ledger for the account. Identify the homonym here. Account. A-C-C-O-U-N-T, isn't it? In the first instance, it is the description. He gave an account of what is happening in the story, or what happened in the story. Describing. He started describing. On the other hand, people do check their ledger for the accounts, that is expenses, isn't it? What are the expenses occurred and what exactly was the going out of the expenses did, something like that. So when you say, it's nothing but the financial record, it means to say that expenses, offers that came in, what came in and what exactly went out. So something that is called as an account. Finance, something that is related to the account, keeping an account. Then he went to the ATM to draw some money. The teachers draw pictures on the blackboard. Don't draw hasty conclusions without ample proof. The offer of free balloons draws children to the park. Okay, so the word draw here has been used in 4 different contexts. Please look into the textbook and try to understand how exactly draw has been used as 2 different contexts. So with this description here, I will tell you the descriptions, or you can just understand the question on 4a where draw has been used in 4 different ways. He went to the ATM to draw some money. Withdraw, the thing which I already told you. The teachers draw pictures. The teachers draw pictures, or you draw pictures on your notebooks. in your notebooks, on your notebooks, in your notebooks, isn't it? Then don't draw hasty conclusions. That is, don't be so very fast in drawing up the conclusions, arriving conclusions. Okay, the offer of free balloons draws, attracts. Okay, attracts someone to their side is called as a drawing attention. Okay, what is your attention? If I ask, if I have to draw your attention, then I should be making you to listen to me what I say in the similar way. So the offer of the free balloons draws the crowd to the park, or something is used in that way. Okay, so your question is, or your assignment here is that find the sentences in which the above homonyms have been used in the story and identify the appropriate meaning. So what you do is that you will read the chapter once again, okay, the whole chapter 2 dear, and you got to identify the homonyms that have been used. Okay, the first thing what you do here is that you got to identify the homonyms, all right, and then you have to come out with the textbook sentences, whatever that is given in the text. The same sentences should be noted, and then you have to look, relook, and then you have to use the same words in the different connotations so that to understand what are homonyms. This is what you got to do here. Okay, so with this, let me conclude this session on the discussions on the question and answers on the short story that we had 2 dear, and we have discussed comprehension number 1, question number 1, comprehension 2, comprehension 3, and we have done a very little discussion on the vocabulary, on which we have taken today only on homonyms. So how do you define a word homonym? A word which is pronounced in a same way with the same spelling but with the different meanings. Okay, so you have an assignment to do here, and that assignment is nothing but read the chapter thoroughly once again and identify the homonyms. Don't get confused, don't use the word homophone right now, that we will do it in the later part of our discussions. Right now you got to concentrate on the homonyms that are used in the short story 2 dear, and you can just begin from the title itself. Okay, and then bring the sentences written in the context of the textbook that is given, and we will just discuss maybe once we start off the classes, the physical classes, so as to say, and we will discuss and finalize it, or we can understand it in a better way with the discussion that we may have it in the class. All right, so hope you have understood this everything, whatever that was discussed in today's class, and probably in the next class let me start another poem that we have, and we will have a discussion on the next unit from the springs only. All right, so thank you so much.